Greetings one, greetings all. So, quite a bit going on with Thundertoad right now. Yeah, so remember the video where I was stuck in the sippy hole and I had to tow the machine out? Thought I damaged my transmission. Well, I ended up talking to a company out in South Dakota who's an expert on these older Argos. I was talking to him about it, and it turns out I might actually not have grenaded my transmission. These older machines have a tendency, I guess, to lose posi traction when they get in a situation where traction on one side of the machine is compromised. So it acts like an open differential, and it will apply power to the side that has the traction and freewheel the side that doesn't. So it turns out there's some sort of little skippity-doo-dah routine that you have to do with the twin sticks to lock it back into posi, or to reset the transmission so you have posi. And I didn't know this. And I don't even think I've read my operator's manual. I don't even think it's listed in the operator's manual. But apparently what happens is when you get in water or in a sippy hole, like I was, where I was high centered, but I had traction. The tires were on the ground on the right side, but on the left side they were just free floating in water. It will take power away from that left side and only apply it to the right, which is exactly what my machine was doing. Not only that, but when you put the machine up on blocks and do the same thing, if you haven't reset the transmission to engage posi, it'll simulate the same behaviors as it did when you got stuck in the sippy hole. So that's exactly what happened. I had no power out to the left bank of wheels, no matter what I did. So apparently what you have to do is you have to take your twin sticks and you have to jiggle them back and forth rapidly under power. You know, ding, 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 to re-engage the posi in the transmission. Okay, that'll look funny on film. But anyway, so I might have not destroyed my transmission. That's a good thing. But in the course of talking to, the guy's name is Ed at Argo Adventures in South Dakota, and he's an awesome guy. In the course of talking to him, I found out a couple of things. I found out this transmission has a catastrophic problem that can happen at any time when you're driving the machine. And that problem is the primary idler gear in the box has, instead of a bearing that it rides on a bronze bushing. And what can happen is that bronze bushing can overheat and expand and then lock itself to the shaft and cause the transmission to come to a sudden and deadly stop under speed. So you can be cruising 20 miles an hour down the trail, transmission gets hot, that bearing expands, seizes on the shaft, and the whole transmission just stops rotating and basically grenades. All the gears, everything in the box just explode, the box comes apart, and you're done. Now, since the machine is an 86, Argo has discontinued manufacturing parts for this transmission, much less complete transmissions. Argo Adventures has, when they got wind of this problem, they had enough foresight to buy gears and shafts and bearings and whatnot to rebuild these transmissions if that happens. But guys through the years have had their trannies grenade, and as a result they have had to sell parts and do rebuilds and whatnot, and now they're running low on inventory. Realistically, if it happens to me, he said my only recourse of action, because there is no other transmission that will retrofit and fit into this machine, is to haul the thing to the scrapyard. But there's a preventative maintenance kit. It's $300 and some, and it retrofits that bronze bushing and switches it to a needle bearing to prevent that from happening. $350 for the kit. Comes with the seals and the snap rings and the bearing and everything I'd need to retrofit my transmission as preventative maintenance to prevent this relic from exploding on me. I'm gonna pull the trigger on that. That's cheap insurance. So there's $350, and I destroyed my primary clutch, tried to take it off the engine. Oh, I didn't tell you that? Oh, there's a $500 mistake. So I'm trying to do a rebuild on the motor. Turns out I really don't need to do a rebuild on the motor, because once I got it apart and looked at it, it doesn't look that bad in my non-expert opinion. But since it's all apart, I'm going to do it. New valves, rings. It needs new rings. It's burning oil. I saw that. So there's loss of compression, which would explain why I'm trying to go up a hill and I don't have hardly any power. Valve job, etc. All new gaskets. It was leaking oil pretty bad. So it needs to be done. So in the process of tearing the engine down, you got to take your primary clutch off of the crankshaft. Well, unbeknownst to me, that clutch is threaded onto that shaft. So I was trying to pull it off of that shaft, thinking the shaft had a keyway in it and it was pressed on. I was trying to pull it off. Well, in the process of trying to pull it off, I tried everything. I used a torch, I heated it up, tried to expand it. I could not get it off that shaft. Why? Because it's screwed onto the shaft, and I didn't know it. So I inserted a bolt in the end of the clutch shaft and tried to use it as a puller to pull the pulley off of the shaft, and I snapped the bolt off inside the clutch shaft. I can't get it out of there. There's no way in hell. I'd have to, tapping and drilling it out with an easy out? No, because I ran it in there with my big 580 foot-pounds of torque impact wrench trying to pop that clutch off of that shaft. So it's wedged in there with an impact wrench. There is no easy out that's going to pull that out. So that means I would have to drill it out, which means I would then have to tap new threads and maybe use an oversized bolt to bolt the rest of the clutch back together. This can be done, but it's outside of my wheelhouse to try. So I think, I asked Ed at Argo Adventures if he had clutches. He says he has a few clutches left, not many. $500, almost $600 for a complete clutch. The clutch in my machine, once I got it apart, is pretty worn out. All the slinger pucks and everything are all slopped out. It's pretty bad shape. So I might just pony up and buy a whole brand new primary clutch. I did find out from him that the secondary clutch that's on the transmission is actually on a keyed shaft, so that can be pulled off with a puller. But I might have to scrape up the $500 and some and just buy a new clutch for the engine. So yeah, that was a rather big mistake this weekend. So now I've got almost $1,000 in the engine and transmission. That's not including the rebuild kit. Oh, then I called Briggs & Stratton because I wanted to buy a rebuild kit. You should be able to buy a rebuild kit from an engine, right? Pistons, gaskets, seals, bushings, bearings, it should come as a kit, right? Called up Briggs & Stratton directly, talked to the factory. Oh no, we don't make a rebuild kit for that motor. Not only that, but that motor is pretty rare. They only made it for 2 years, and you're going to be hard-pressed to find anybody that's willing to work on it. Here's a list of authorized service providers that can work on those older engines, but you're going to have to piece together your rebuild kit from scratch, part by part. Okay, so there's that. So yeah, I mean, Thundertoad is turning into a Thunderthorn in my side, but I love the little guy. And I'm going, oh, yeah, I did tell you about the wheels and tires. Did I tell you about the wheels and tires? I can't remember if I told you about the wheels and tires. Oh, it just gets better. So the original tires are 20 by 11-8 Goodyear Runamucks. All right? They're wore out. One of them has a leak, but I figured out where the leak is. It's a bead leak, and that's a pretty easy fix. But they are the tires that were run with the tracks on this machine, and that's how I'm going to keep it. So I need new tires to run in the mud and sand. All right? So I go on the interweb, and I look around, and I found some Kendas that I showed you the tires. Yes, I showed you these. I remember now. But anyway, so I get the tires, right? And I look at them, I'm like, damn, they look small. They look smaller in diameter than the 20s Runamucks that are on there now. And the ones I ordered were 21s. I thought, well, okay, when you put air in them, they'll swell up, they'll balloon up, you know, yeah, we'll be good. So I mounted them to the rims, had them mounted to the rims. I bring them home, I put them on the machine, and they look like skateboard wheels. They did not expand, they did not do nothing. They're smaller in diameter than the original Runamucks. I could have put 24-inch Kendas on there and filled up the wheel well, so to speak, and had 2 or 3 more inches of ground clearance. And instead, I ended up with smaller diameter tires, and now I can't return them because they've been mounted to rims. I don't know, is this my karma for my sins? Maybe it is, who knows? So this just sucks. So yeah, I don't know. It's just one problem after another. So yeah, that's where we're at now. I think I'm going to pull the trigger on that transmission saver kit for sure. I'm going to piece together an engine rebuild kit for sure, and we'll go from there. And the wife said, just drive it with the tires that you got and see how it is. If you end up spending all your time winching out of the mud holes, so be it. I said, yeah, that's kind of fun. Extracting is fun. I mean, granted, a guy would like to go on a trail ride and cover 15, 20 miles in the trail ride, and instead of going 300 yards, getting stuck, winch out, another 200 yards, get stuck, winch out. But whatever, it's all part of the adventure, right? So, yeah, that's the plan. Not too happy, but what are you going to do, right? So, stick around. I rebuild the engine. I'll show you that. I tear into that tranny. I'll show you that. And maybe I'll have this thing out in the snow by the time winter gets here. My goal was to obviously buy a running machine that I could count on and then spend all my time building a cage for it and a cover, you know, some sort of a canopy so that I can be nice and warm in the winter. But now, obviously, I've got bigger fish to fry. So there's a very real possibility that I'll be riding topless in the winter, freezing my nuts off. But we'll see what happens. So stick around. Catch you on the flip side.